video, we are going to be talking about how I have early detection without using mammograms. Now, I am going to make a statement, and I will make this statement several times during this video because I understand that a lot of us only hear what we want to hear. The following statement is, and I will write it down as well, if you have the genetic gene BRCA1, BRCA gene active, and you've been tested and this is true for you, what I'm about to say in this video does not apply to you. You need to get mammograms. If you have a history in your family of anyone having breast cancer, I highly recommend that you get mammograms. For everyone else, you may be interested in how I have been screening for breast cancer for the last 18 years and will continue to do this for the rest of my life if nothing changes. This is what I want to share with you in this video. And if you would like to know what I have to say about breast cancer screening, keep watching. Hi everyone, it's Moonlight Mason and welcome to my channel. If you're new here for the first time, please consider subscribing and also know that I have a variety of videos you'll find in my playlist. But today we're going to be talking about breast screening and particularly mammograms, why I don't do mammograms, why you should do them or you shouldn't do them, and what is our wonderful, absolutely the best alternative to having a mammogram and why. Okay, let's start the video by saying that if you have a history in your family of someone having breast cancer, you should definitely get mammograms. If you have been tested for the gene BRCA1, BRCA gene, please do get mammograms. I believe everyone should get one mammogram has a baseline. So this is what I'm suggesting. If you have had one mammogram or more and all of them have been negative and you don't have a history of breast cancer in your biological family, and you don't have an active breast cancer gene, then I would highly recommend that you look towards a thermal imaging for breast screening. Now, before we get into thermal imaging and what it is, because since I've had many thermal imagings within the last 18 years. I don't go once a year like I should. I usually go once every 2 or 3 years. And that's because obviously, of course, this is not going to be covered by your insurance. It's not. But the cost isn't that much and the benefit is great. And we're going to get into that. But before we get into the benefits and the differences between traditional mammograms and breast thermal imaging, I'm going to talk a little bit about mammograms and why I chose not to have any and why I chose not to have any more other than the 1 or 2 that I had like 20 years ago. So around the year 2000, I got into the raw food movement, which basically is just eating raw foods, not vegan raw foods. And when I got into that, it got me into a lot of other things where I went to a lot of lectures and a lot of, workshops. Now, ever since I was 13 years old, I have been a health nut. So my whole life, I have been, like, my number one goal has been to be healthy. Ever since I could remember, like I was 12 or 13, and I witnessed my parents, especially my dad, go through a lot. So I chose at that age to do what I can to be healthy. So when I discovered breast thermal imaging, I was absolutely thrilled. I had gone to get a mammogram, and I know that many of you get them once a year or once every 2 years, as is recommended by your physician. If you have not had one, this is a barbaric procedure where your breast is squished between two metal plates. And in addition to that, they are radiating the breast with radiation. In addition to that, when you have a mammogram and you get diagnosed as having breast cancer, it's already too late. It's already present. That is one of the biggest differences between a mammogram and thermal imaging. So when you think about it that way, maybe you are preventing your death, right? But it is not. It is not early detection. Mammograms are not early detection because when they detect, we're going to go through that right now. When they detect it, you already have active cancer cells double in number every 90 days. When you have been diagnosed as having something like a lump to look at for further investigation through a mammogram, and it turns out to be cancer, when that happens, that cancer has been developing for 8 years or longer. Now let's get into thermography. Infrared thermal camera, which is FDA approved. A baseline. The very first time that you go in for thermal imaging is the most uncomfortable. Now, nobody touches you. No one ever touches you when you have thermal imaging. So let me explain the baseline and what the first thing is when you go in. When you go in, the first thing that you do is you have a consult with the doctor, and then you end up sitting in a kind of a chilled room by yourself, or you can have someone there if you want, and you're sitting there by yourself, naked from the waist up, and you have to keep both hands in a bucket of ice water. And you just have to, I think it's for like, I'm not quite sure. It's been so long since I had my baseline. It might be like 10 minutes. It seems like it's a long time. Maybe it's 5 minutes. I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure about that. It is 5 to 10 minutes, and that is really uncomfortable, trying to keep your hands in ice water that long. But you're sitting down by yourself, naked from the waist up, and you've got your hands in a bucket of ice water, and the room is chilled. That is meant to lower your body temperature. After you do that, think about when you go for a photo shoot. It's exactly like a photo shoot. The only difference is that you're sitting on a stool and you're naked from the waist up. There will be the doctor about maybe, 5, 6 feet away from you. The doctor never touches you. They have this thermal imaging camera, and they take pictures of you. That is it. This, again, is medically FDA approved. The equipment is FDA approved. The studies have been FDA approved. And with thermal imaging, it will detect cancer. How does that work and why? Before you actually get a cancer cell, there will be an increased blood flow to a particular area that's starting to fester, that's starting to grow, that's starting to multiply. I had that happen to me once. I did go one time for my thermal imaging, and they did the pictures, which you get colorful, beautiful. Okay, if I were to have something that looked suspicious, you would see red somewhere along inside the breasts. You would see heat. And that heat can be an indicator of cancer cells starting to develop, at which point, legally, at which point they must refer you to having a mammogram. Which, by the way, now that reminds me, that was my second mammogram that I had. So the first mammogram I had when I didn't know anything about thermal imaging, and the second one was, I don't know how many years into it, I had gone and got some thermal imaging. They found a spot that looked suspicious to them. Now, the reports that come are very statistical. There's all these numbers and, you know, it's just very, it has to be read by someone who knows how to read a thermal imaging report. Not only that, it has to, the results have to go to someone who's highly trained in reading these results. So they had found something that was suspicious. They circled it. Like, let's just say the circle was like right here. Just pretend like the circle was right here. I think probably it was right here. And then I had to go in and have a mammogram. But when I went in for the mammogram, I went in with my results. I said, I went to thermal imaging, and the doctors were the Professional Breast Center, okay, in San Mateo County. What? Huh? We never heard of this. And I said, well, you need to pay attention to this spot. There looks like there could be something on this spot. So because of that, I got a mammogram, and then they called in for an ultrasound right on the spot, and they found nothing. At that time, when they found nothing, I went back to my doctor who did the breast thermal imaging, and all we did was talk about preventing cancer in general in your body and what you should do. It's all through diet, in your thoughts, and your life, and your stress level, and all the stuff that we know. And I took 90 days and I cleaned up my diet. I believe that's when I was raw vegan for 3 months of my whole life. I went raw for 3 months, and that was the time I went raw. I mean, I only ate raw, organic, uncooked food, vegetables and fruits. And I soaked like quinoa and legumes and soaked my nuts and seeds. I did the whole thing. And then I went and got retested with thermal imaging, and it was gone. And they said, you know, that spot that was suspicious is gone. Keep doing what you're doing. Now, you should go for thermal imaging once a year, but I only go once every 2 years. And that's a personal choice. I recommend that if you're going to do this, I recommend you do it right and you go once a year. The reason I don't go once a year is because I believe it's like $180 the first time you go in, and then it depends on your area, but it might be like $150, $160 every time you go in once a year. It's not covered by insurance. I am really healthy. I know I know what my goals are with my health. I know how I eat and how I live my life. I know my stressors. So I do the best that I can, which is around once every 2 years. I am sharing this with you because I know that many of you don't know about this, and many of you are going to mammograms, and I understand that those are covered by your insurance and that they're free. In case you do not have anyone in your family with a history of breast cancer, you don't have that active gene, and you want to be healthier, the healthiest way to go with breast screening is breast thermal imaging. I highly recommend it. Again, it is FDA approved. I will put some links below, articles, videos. You can look it all up. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I hope this helped you guys in knowing that there are alternatives out there for mammograms. There are also alternatives out there once you've been diagnosed with breast cancer. I personally have two or three, but I think I can only think of 2 right now. Close personal friends who have had breast cancer, who have chosen to go different routes. It's a personal decision. I would never say if that happened to me, I wouldn't go through the medical route. I would not say that because you don't know what you're going to do until something happens to you. But I am all about prevention, and early screening. Please let me know if you enjoyed this video and you want to know more health and longevity tips. I'm Moonlight Mason, and do subscribe. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.